Hello, my name is David Wick. I am totally delighted and honored to be recognized by the Icons of Change International Awards for this year. I want to ask you, what if peace were no longer treated as something we hope for after a crisis, but something that we consciously invest in before crisis occurs? For more than 4 decades, I have worked with Pathways to Peace and many partners around the world to advance a simple but profound idea. Peace is not passive. Peace is an active human capacity, a social infrastructure, and a practical investment in our common future. Investment. I have worked with Pathways to Peace since 1980 and its establishment as a United Nations NGO, and it became a UN Peace Messenger organization. We helped to support the 1981 resolution creating the International Day of Peace and bring it into civil society. We also assisted the UN Culture of Peace resolution in 1999, and we have advanced global culture of peace initiatives from the beginning. I currently serve as Pathways to Peace President, Executive Director of the Ashland Culture of Peace Commission, and past President of the Rotary E-Club of World Peace. I have also worked for 25 years at Levi Strauss, Stanford University, and Sun Microsystems. I have learned that at a time of war, polarization, and misinformation, social fragmentation, and declining trust, the question is not whether peace matters. The question is whether we are willing to resource, measure, and scale it. What it means in the United Nations about the culture of peace. In the UN in 1999 Declaration and Program of Action on the Culture of Peace, as a resolution, defines peace as more than the absence of war and states. A culture of peace is a set of values, attitudes, traditions, and modes of behavior and ways of life. It also describes peace as a positive and participatory process in which dialogue is encouraged and conflicts are addressed through mutual understanding and cooperation. A culture of peace is not merely the absence of violence, it is the presence of the conditions that make that violence less likely, with dignity, justice, dialogue, opportunity, belonging, empathy, participation, and respect for life. As agreed to and supported by the UN General Assembly in 1999, 8 action areas were established to highlight the scope of the culture of peace. They are, as you see, peace education and learning how to resolve differences nonviolently, sustainable economic and social development. Number 3, human rights and human dignity. 4, equality and empowerment of women and girls. 5, democratic participation and accountable institutions. 6, understanding, tolerance, solidarity, and intercultural respect. 7, participatory communication and a healthy flow of information. And 8, international peace, security, disarmament, and cooperation. The culture of peace is not one program. It is the ecology within which all healthy human systems can flourish. This is essential for the betterment and the evolution of humanity. Then we have the Sustainable Development Goals, and particularly I'm focused on the Sustainable Development Goal 16. The UN Culture of Peace vision became more operational through the Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. SDG 16 calls for peaceful and inclusive societies, access to justice, and effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. SDG 16 is not simply one goal among 17. It is a foundational goal. Without peace, trust, and rule of law, inclusion, and accountable institutions, progress on health, education, climate, poverty, gender equality, and economic prosperity becomes fragile. The culture of peace gives an overall framework. The SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, operationalize it. I find 7 SDG themes which may be particularly relevant to you who are listening to this information right now. This includes violence prevention. Again, this is all part of the SDG 16. Violence prevention, access to justice, combating crime and illicit flows, anti-corruption, accountable institutions, participatory decision-making, and fundamental rights and access to information again. Now you take this in. These are all very important. These are fundamental to health and well-being of all people, all countries. The official SDG framework includes targets to reduce violence, promote the rule of law, equal access to justice, and build accountable, inclusive institutions. A fundamental is important for all of us to understand and live by. Peace is not the reward at the end of development. Peace is not the reward at the end of development. Peace is the enabling condition for development that needs to support moving forward our evolution. A bit about my background. In 1984, when Pathways to Peace and partners began helping advance the vision of an International Day of Peace with the very first global celebration in San Francisco, it was not because we believed that one day would solve the world's conflicts. It was because shared moments of intention from individuals to organizations and communities can help change consciousness, language, priorities, and relationships. From this beginning with a few thousand people in San Francisco and around the world at that time, but today when hundreds of millions of people, some have found that billions of people recognize and celebrate the International Day of Peace. That is social change. That is social evolution in 40 years. That shows us something important. When the vision is clear enough, inclusive enough, and persistent enough, it can become part of the world's moral imagination and embraced value. An idea became a global value. Through the Ashland Culture of Peace Commission and establishing the World Peace Flame in Ashland, Oregon, I have seen that peace building, both globally and locally, are relevant. It happens in the United Nations, but it also happens in a city council, a chamber, a school, a faith community, a Rotary club, a police department, a neighborhood conversations, and in the way people choose to speak to one another during disagreements. Global transformation is not achieved only through large institutions. It is achieved when institutions, communities, businesses, educators, artists, media leaders, and citizens all become practitioners of a culture of peace. We talked about some of the fundamentals, but it's actionable. It is taking action, taking it into our communities on a daily basis. That's the foundation. The central innovation is how do we measure the ROI? How do we measure the return on investment of peace? Because it needs to be practical, it needs to be seen, it needs to be shared, it needs to be funded. Funding means what's the return on investment? What do we get from doing this? Well, there's ways of doing it, and I'll share this. For too long, peace has been treated as something too intangible to measure. Yes, yet we measure the cost of war, violence, division, trauma, lost productivity, displacement, corruption, insecurity, and mistrust every day. We measure that. The Institute for Economics and Peace is estimated that the global economic impact of violence was $19.97 trillion in 2024. $19 trillion in 2024, equal to about 11.6% of the global GDP. From my experience in peace building in corporate worlds, I offer this framework for greater clarification. This is a measure for 5 returns on investment for peace. 1, financial returns. What costs are reduced or avoided? 2, social returns. What improves in the social fabric? 3, institutional returns. What becomes more effective? 4, human returns. What happens to people? 5, future generational return. What do we leave for those who are coming after us? The true return on peace is not only money saved, it is human potential release. Therefore, and it is quoted here, peace is an investment. It is not a cleanup. The powerful assistant that AI provides, it is not a substitute for human consciousness. I have pondered what is the role and value added by AI. Now it is a part of everyday life, all our organizations, but what does it mean in the relationship of peace and peace building? Now in the future, on helping us to be focused and competent in establishing the return on investment of peace building and evolving the lived culture of peace experience. AI will assist. The current evidence suggests AI can help peace building through early warning systems, forecasting, inclusive dialogue, civic engagement, and analysis of conflict patterns, and improved access to information. A recent review of more than 600 articles identified early warning and forecasting, inclusive in digital dialogue and civic engagement among AI's promising peace-building uses. Artificial intelligence, or augmented intelligence as some people refer, can help us see patterns that human beings may miss. It can help us map risk, identify emerging tensions, translate across languages, support dialogue, track progress, and help decision makers use resources more wisely. It is a tool. But AI does not have wisdom. It does not have conscience. It does not have compassion unless people designing, governing, and using it to bring these values into the system. Values can be brought into AI systems, and I've seen it done. The UN Department of Public Information in 2025 Human Development Report makes a relevant point. The central question is not simply what AI can do, but what choices people make about how to use to expand human possibilities. It's our choice, it's a tool, and we could use it for good or ill. AI for peace must be, and these are key points, and we have choices in how we function with it. Human-centered, it should strengthen people, communities, and democratic participation rather than replace them. Ethically governed, it should protect human rights, privacy, fairness, accountability, and truth. Peace intentionally, it should be designed not only for speed and profit, but for reducing harm, increasing understanding, and strengthening cooperation. It is all essential, and they can be used and built into it. AI is beginning to make peace building more anticipatory, more evidence-based, more targeted, and more accountable. The next frontier is to connect these improvements with greater measures of cost to avoid costs, increase trust, prevent violence, institutional resilience strengthened, and human potential is released. AI is a framework for return on investment, again, using AI. One is harm prevented. As you can see, I'm not going to read each one of these. Harm prevented, time being saved, resources are better targeted, trust and inclusion is strengthened, human capacity is expanded. These are all assisted by measurement, by engagement of AI. The purpose is not to reduce peace to spreadsheets. The purpose is to make visible the enormous value that peace creates and the enormous cost that its absence imposes. This is vital. The future question is not whether AI will shape our societies. It already is. The deeper question is whether we will shape AI with the values of peace. Then we proceed. Every one of us invests in something every day. Our time, our attention, our influence, our relationships, our expertise, our money, and our imagination. The question before us is, what are we investing in? Are we investing in fear or trust, division or dialogue, extraction or regeneration, completion alone, or cooperation for the common good? The culture of peace is not naive. It is disciplined, it is strategic, it is measurable, it is economically wise, it is morally necessary, and in the age of artificial intelligence, it may be one of the most important forms of human intelligence we can choose to cultivate. Let us become the generation that learns to measure peace, invest in peace, and live peace, so that future generations inherit not only a more advanced technology, but a more humane world. Thank you very much.